Love is spiritual, not natural. You ever think about that? This is absolutely miraculous. With love, you get the results now. Hi, Dr. Alex Lloyd here, and welcome to Deep Water. I want to talk this week about hurt feelings, when your feelings become hurt. That may sound like kind of 10-year-old stuff, but believe me, it's not. It's 50-year-old stuff, 70-year-old stuff. It's all your life stuff, okay? I used to kind of specialize in relationship counseling when I did counseling and therapy, more traditional counseling and therapy. And I'm not sure if I've ever tried to help people resolve a problem where there were not hurt feelings with at least one person and sometimes with everybody, which were the reason that we were there. And it was the reason for the problem, that their feelings got hurt and they reacted to that. And then the problems get worse and worse and worse. And then when they're down the road, they start doing the chicken or the egg thing. Well, I only did this because you did that and hurt my feelings. Well, I only did that because you did this and hurt my feelings. Now, they might not use those words, but that's what they were saying. As I was preparing for this week, I was thinking back on my own life about a couple of the times when my feelings were really hurt. I remember one of the earliest ones was when I started to school. And before that, my life had been kind of idyllic. Didn't really realize that I was any different from anybody else. I loved everybody. Everybody seemed okay with me. I had fun. I spontaneously sang all the time, stuff like that. And then started to school, and my life did an absolute 180. Went from wonderful to horrible. I was dyslexic, ADD, ADHD before they really knew what those things were, so I was almost failing every single class. I failed kindergarten. Okay, I've been told you can't fail kindergarten. Well, I did. Failed third grade too. Was the oldest in my graduating high school class because I had failed those grades, and was last in my high school class academically, just barely having gotten through by the seat of my pants. But in addition to that, when I started to school, I was made fun of for my body. I was Chunky. Chunky was one of my nicknames. And when my mom took me to shop for clothes, we would have to go to the Husky section. You remember the Husky section? For those of you who are too young to remember that, there used to be a Husky section, which means you're a little fat rather than a lot fat. Okay? Pillsbury Doughboy was one of my other nicknames when I first started to school. And, oh man, those things were just horrible, especially when they would yell them across the schoolyard and the girls would hear, and I would laugh and then go home and cry. And that went on for years, from the time I started school, 6 or 7 years old, until probably 13 or 14, when I started working out like crazy to try to solve that problem. And it did, but it created another problem that may have even been worse. We'll talk about that another time. One of the worst times my feelings were hurt was with my dad. I was probably 13 years old, 12 years old, right in there, adolescence. And my dad had just found out he had serious heart cardiovascular health problems. And they told him he would either have to have open heart surgery or die. Well, this was the very first days of open heart surgery. It wasn't like it was now. When you had open heart surgery then, you were never the same again. And everybody knew that. So he was looking at like 50 years of age, at his life as he knew it being over. And he was very upset, but trying to keep it all bottled up inside. And on a Saturday morning, he snapped. And I happened to be the one that was around when he snapped. And he started hitting me over and over and over, probably for about a minute or minute and a half, with his open hand, not with his fist. But he was hitting me in the face, in the head, in the body, all over. And while he was hitting me, he kept saying over and over, "Alex, you are never going to amount to anything. Alex, you are never going to amount to anything." And then after about a minute and a half, he left me on the ground bleeding and just turned and walked away without saying anything. And at that point in my life, that was the most hurt as far as my feelings. I wasn't injured bad. I'd fallen down and cut my leg a little bit, but that wasn't serious. What was serious was in my mind and heart. And that 1.5 minute event basically controlled and ruled the next 15 years of my life. And what everyone around me told me is that until that time, man, if I was at home, I would be singing just spontaneously to nobody, but very happily, cheerfully, joyfully, all the time. Not just in the shower, but also everywhere else. And on the day that happened, I quit singing. And the joy, all the joy went out of me because I was hurt so deeply by that. And my dad, he didn't even mean it. He would tell me years later that he didn't mean it. I wish he had told me sooner, but he didn't. That it was about him and he just snapped. But that was true. So what ruled my life for about the next 15 years had nothing to do with me. What he said was not remotely true. It wasn't true that I would never amount to anything because he had cardiovascular health problems. Those don't fit together. That's no. That's a non sequitur. That's not correct. But even though it wasn't correct, he was my dad. I mean, if he says something, it's true. Okay, at least what I believed at the time. So that totally wiped out, ruined, made negative and bitter and angry and everything else the next 15 years of my life. And I can't convey with words the depth of that hurt. Another one was when I was in college and met this wonderful young lady that I was in love with for the first time in my life. And she was beautiful, she was sweet, she was wonderful, and she probably had mental problems because she thought those same things about me. But no, we were just like this, and it was like a perfect fit. And within 3 months, we were both talking about we were going to get married, and we were going to have kids, we were going to do this, and do this, and do this, and it was just wonderful, all right? She called me one summer. I believe it was the summer before my junior year of college, before her senior year. And she said, "Alex, I am marrying a local dentist this weekend, and I thought I should let you know. Don't call me. Don't come up here." That was about 100 miles from where I lived. "It's a done deal. You can't change it. I've made up my mind," and hung up the phone. And I tried to find her. I tried to call her. I tried, she was hiding or something from me, I think. I could not find her. But on that Saturday night, the night that she got married, her best friend called me on the phone and said, Alex, I just thought you should know that right before she walked down the aisle to get married, she said, I'm completely in love with Alex. And then she walked down the aisle and married someone else. I believe, and her friends believed, she did it because of insecurity. She thought, for some reason, that I would decide I didn't love her anymore and I didn't want to marry her, and that she would be left out in the cold, so to speak. That would never have happened. I never had any of those feelings. So she went ahead and got married to someone basically for security. I'm sad to say that did not work out. They ended up getting divorced and whatever. But for about the next 6 months, I literally got sick. I got mono and had to drop out of school. And I know it was because of that. And I did not, I mean, I wasn't suicidal at all, but I saw no future for my life. And I was so broken. I thought I will never love again. This is it. And all of that. Okay. So, getting our feelings hurt, whether it's something big like that or just someone being unkind to us, which always hurts. All right. Anytime someone's unkind, it hurts. All right. I don't care if you're a big burly, man and strong and everything like that and try to act like nothing touches you. It does. Whether you admit it or not. When someone is mean to you, unkind to you, whatever, it hurts 100% of the time. The only exception to that maybe is if you are a sociopath and you really don't even have those feelings. The only feelings you have are for yourself, instant gratification, no matter what anyone else says, all right? But those are very, very rare. So for the most part, when we're treated a certain way or not treated a certain way, it always hurts your feelings. And those things can mess up your day. They can mess you up for months. One of mine was 6 months. One of mine was 15 years. And I've had a bunch of them that were like 1 day or 2 days. Hope and I've had a number of disagreements that hurt my feelings for, days, weeks, something like that. All right. So this is one of the biggest issues on the planet, because this can take you from being okay and functioning the way you're supposed to function to not being okay and function and malfunctioning, which can lead to illness and disease, mental illness, chronic negative emotions, chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia are two of the most common results of getting your feelings hurt to a point that you don't bounce back from. Autoimmune type illnesses, which are so huge today, have just absolutely skyrocketed. Well, a great deal of the time, those come from hurt feelings. So when this happens, first of all, I would say pause this and close your eyes and think about times in your life when your feelings were hurt. Think of some big ones. Think of some medium ones. Think of some little ones. All right? Maybe jot down a couple of words to remind you what they are. Rate it 0 to 10. 10 being the worst of how hurt it feels now when you remember that. Okay? But take a little stock of where you are, because you can be functioning okay now, but still have hurt feelings from something in the past that have never been healed. And the problem with that is that fills up your stress barrel. If your stress barrel's not full, your immune system and body can handle stuff, and you still have positive emotions, positive thoughts, and positive physiology in your body, and not disease and illness. All right? But when that stress barrel starts to overflow, it's not, will I break? It's, where will you break and when? It's for sure you're going to break as long as that thing keeps overflowing. And hurt feelings are one of the biggest things that fill up our stress barrel. So sweeping these things under the rug will not work. That means you're giving up a percentage of your stress barrel for the rest of your life to that event, which means now that stress barrel will overflow way easier than it's supposed to. So day in, day out, you're going to be going back and forth between okay, not okay, because you've got your stress barrel maybe half full of all these past hurts that have never been resolved. So you have to resolve those. And when you do, it empties your stress barrel, and now you can be steady in love, joy, peace, feeling good, healthier and healthier physically, etc. All right? So I'm going to get up. Let's take a look at some of the steps to take when your feelings get hurt, and going back to heal those hurt feeling events that need to be resolved so that you can empty your stress barrel. Get rid of this chair. All right. Number one, stop the action-reaction. Stop the stimulus response. Okay? Somebody hurts your feelings, and the reaction response is to hurt them back or to run and hide. One of those two. All right? Well, I'm saying have a new set of rules for yourself when your feelings get hurt. And the first one is stop your negative reaction to it. Okay? So do not want to hurt them back. Well, that's kind of a dumb thing for me to say. You can't necessarily control the thought you have. Somebody hurts you, and you have the thought you want to hurt them back. You may not be able to control that. You can't control the thoughts you have. You can control the thoughts you keep. So when you have that thought, either to run and hide and cry and pitch a fit, or to hurt them back, grab that thought and say, whoa, I may have done this all my life, but no more. I'm stopping the action-reaction. Well, how do you do that? Let's go on. Number two, pray your hurt. Okay? If you don't believe in prayer, then make a request of your heart and talk to your heart. You can also go to a trusted friend or relative who you know loves you unconditionally, so that you can share this with them without fear that you'll be hurt more by what they say when you tell them what happened. All right? If you don't have that person, then talk to your heart, which is largely your unconscious mind that's in control of your conscious mind and your body. But prayer works much better. All right? Pray your hurt. And I mean, don't change a word. If you're thinking and feeling curse words toward this person that hurts your feelings, pray the curse words. God knows you're thinking them anyway, all right? And so keep praying your hurt until the hurt goes down, 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 until finally you're okay. Okay? And I believe that will happen about 8 times out of 10 just from praying your hurt. And here's the deal. If you don't pray it, if instead of praying it, you just scream it, curse it, whatever, that is a fear response and spikes your stress and makes the hurt worse. If you pray it, that's a love-based decision, and it reduces the hurt and makes it better. All right? It's amazing. So this is the healthy option to stop the action-reaction. All right. Number 3, try to get some perspective. The Indians used to have a thing where they said, never judge a person till you walk a mile in their moccasins or walk a day in their moccasins. It's quoted different ways by some different sources, but you get the idea. I had a client one time who was a lady who had been raped in her home as an adult. And she called me as a last step before taking her own life. And did not believe I could help her, but she'd promised a friend she would talk to me before she took any action. And when I asked her to describe what happened, she said that the only thought she'd ever had about the guy that raped her is that she'd like to get a shotgun and blow his head off. Okay? And the rape had happened 3 years before I met her, and in 3 years she had become a full-blown addict to drugs, alcohol, promiscuous, meaningless sexual relationships, even though she was married with a family. She had dropped weight down to about 90 pounds from about 120 pounds. She was on all kinds of medications. She was in constant fear and anxiety. When I asked her how she felt, man, she just rattled them off. I feel like a piece of meat, not a person. I feel like I'm dirty in a way that soap can never wash clean, etc. Anyway, I worked with her for a while, and it healed. The memory of her rape healed. And she called me on the phone to tell me about it, and she said, for the first time in my memory, I looked in the eyes of the man that raped me and thought, what in the world happened to him that hurt him so much that he could do what he did to me? And she said, for the first time, I felt pity and compassion for the man who raped me. And as soon as she felt that, she said she felt all of the negativity leave her, like a literal weight leaving her body, the unforgiveness, the hatred, all gone. And she reconciled with her husband. She got off all drugs and alcohol without any withdrawal, which the doctor said was impossible. Is healthy, happy, vibrant today. And this is about 12 years later now. But try to look at what happened from multiple perspectives, including perspectives you don't currently have, but acknowledge that they may exist. That if you knew what that person had or was going through, you very well might naturally say, oh, okay, yeah, well, that explains it. Kind of like my dad finding out he may be about to die, or for sure his life will be over as he had known it, okay? Doesn't excuse it, but it's a reason that makes sense. Alfred Hitchcock, one of the great horror movie directors, I love a lot of his movies, has a famous quote, I believe, that anybody is capable of murder under the right circumstances, okay? Allow for the person who hurt you, allow for their circumstances, that if that had been you, you may have done the same thing, possibly even worse. All right? Number 4, seek the truth about the situation, the whole truth, not just your hurt feelings truth. So, for me, if I'd done this with my dad, when my dad hurt me, it would be, okay, wait a minute. Before I get too upset here, Dad's never done anything like that before. Never. Nothing close to it. What in the world could be going on that would cause him to do that? Well, if I'd gone to my mother 5 minutes later, she would have told me. And she would have hugged me and said, honey, that had nothing to do with you. That's just your dad. He is so upset about this health problem. And that wouldn't have healed it 100%, but I bet it would have healed it 90%. and I wouldn't have wasted the next 15 years of my life. So seek the truth, the whole truth. The word integrity means the whole truth about the situation as best you can find it. And then whatever you find, add love to it, because that's your job. Okay? And so no matter what anyone else does to you that hurts your feelings, was it fair? No, I'm not saying it's fair at all. I'm saying it was probably unfair what they did that hurt your feelings. But have you ever done anything unfair to someone else? Chances are maybe you have. All right, so seek the truth and then add love to it. Number 5, heal that event and transform it into good. There's an ancient manuscript that says, count it as joy when pain happens to you. Because, why in the world would you do that? It doesn't say you'll feel joy. It says count it as joy, which are two different things, all right? Well, why would you count it as joy? In order to transform it from bad to good. How does it do that? Because when you experience the pain of hurt and you do it in love and truth, add truth to it, try to get the whole perspective, pray your hurt out instead of doing something more destructive and all that. Number 1, you'll learn a lesson from it. Almost always a lesson that will surprise you and benefit you for the rest of your life. Number 2, it requires perseverance. And according to ancient manuscript, when you go through enough perseverance and learn those lessons from the pain, it takes you to a place of maturity. And what kind of maturity are we talking about? We're not talking about old age. We're talking about being able to stay in a place predominantly of love, joy, and peace, no matter what your current circumstances. You experience disappointment? Yes, absolutely. But then bounce back pretty quick. But you do not tend to become hatred, to have hate, anger, things like that. With maturity comes disappointment instead of anger and hatred, and then bouncing back, learning from it, becoming mature, and staying for the most part in a place of love, truth, joy, and peace. All right? And if you do that, it will transform the hurt into something good. That it literally is better for you that the hurt happened because it has made you better inside in maybe physical ways as well as emotional and mental ways and in your heart and spirit. Okay? It has become a blessing to you if you deal with it and handle it the right way. Number 6, mark it off your list. That metaphoric, you may have a diary or something too, and if you do, I would say once you get to this point, mark it out in your diary. If it's a metaphorical list, then in your mind and heart, mark it out. I'm marking that out. I'm not keeping track of that anymore. It has become a blessing to me. I'm a better person now because of going through that and getting to the other side in love. All right. Number 7, use tools to heal the residue if there's still some residue. I have a program called Trilogy that in 3 years of medical testing tested at 98% effective for eliminating stress and negative emotions in 30 minutes or less. Okay? My original process called the Healing Codes graded out at about 86, 87%. But if you're an academician and if you're very much mainstream and think, oh, I'm not going to that's energy stuff. That's a bunch of baloney. Well, it's not. There have been 5 university, clinical, controlled, double-blind, randomized studies on the healing codes published in peer-reviewed journals, and every one of the studies showed a dramatic difference in this kind of situation using that process, and typically in minutes, days, or weeks, not months or years. All right? So use some practical tools to heal the residue, and then 8, if possible, confront the other person, but only in kindness, truth, and love. So you are returning good for evil. You're returning kindness for unkindness, meanness, doing harm, and maybe even intentionally. And if you do confront them in this way, with only kindness, truth, and love, now this can become not only a blessing for you, it will for sure be a blessing for you, create maturity, transform it into good, but now it can even transform it for them. It can turn it in them from a negative to a positive, and it also creates the possibility that because of the extraordinary way you handled this, because 9 out of 10 people handle it action-reaction, that the person that hurt you will be touched by that, and you and that person will at least become okay. And I would say probably 30-40% of the time, you and that person will become close. You will enter into a communion relationship. And that doesn't mean sex. That means deep intimacy. And every relationship you have that's a communal relationship, deep intimacy, is like absolute gold to your health, your emotions, your thoughts, your actions and behavior, everything. Like gold. Well, when this happens, it is an opportunity to create another gold communal relationship in yourself, and for this person as well, win-win. Now, sometimes it won't work, okay? You are responsible for what you do. You are responsible for how you respond to that hurt, all right? You are not responsible for how the person who hurt you responds when you confront them this way. That's up to them. And so if their response, if what they choose as a response, or maybe they don't choose it, it's just automatic, is mean again, or sarcastic, or something else, okay? Just understand, that has nothing to do with you. That has only to do with them. You're not responsible for that. But doing this in love, kindness, and truth completely heals it and turns it to a positive in you, regardless of how they react. But probably 30% of the time, they will react so positive that you'll have an opportunity for a communal relationship. Probably another 30% of the time, they'll respond good, they'll appreciate it, maybe even apologize, back off of what they did, but not go so far as that communal. And some of the time, they will still be mean. How they respond, not your deal. Your deal is just to do it right yourself. Okay? Now, that about covers it. And if you go through these steps, you've taken something that can be absolutely deadly for you in a variety of ways. It can literally create disease in you over time, but immediately, negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative actions. and stress and anxiety inside. All right? You've taken that to something that is not only okay, but it's now better for you that it happened than if it hadn't happened. It's become a blessing to you. It's helped take you to a place of maturity, and your best possible life. Now, one last thing. What if you're the person doing the hurting? Well, I think you go through the same steps. But there's one other step, and that is you need to find the hurt that is causing you to hurt other people. Anger begets anger. Hatred begets hatred. Kindness begets kindness. So if you hurt someone, you can put it in the bank. You're doing it because you have unhealed hurt inside of you. Like with what happened with my dad, or the girl I wanted to marry, or a whole bunch of 100 other ones in my life that are not quite as big as that, but still very, very negative. All right? You have to heal those. Go through the same process with yourself. Confront yourself in kindness, truth, and love. Use the tools to heal those hurts you have so that you can start being the instigator. No matter what anyone does to you, their action toward you, but instead of reaction to hurt them or to run and hide, this is your response, to confront with kindness, truth, and love only. And more often than not, it's going to heal that situation. It's going to change that person to some degree, from a little to a lot. But 100% of the time, it's going to benefit you in your health, happiness, thoughts, feelings, stress paradigm, everything. Okay? So I encourage you this week to examine your hurts and start healing them, and examine who are the people that I've hurt, and do I need to write some letters? Do I need to pick up the phone and call some people? Do I need to try to make things right with some other people? And maybe before even trying to do that, go through this process with yourself so that you can do this honestly. You're being kind, acting in truth and love, and you're not just acting that way. That's who you are inside now. Well, you may have to do some work to get to that first, all right? So, but if you need to make something right with someone, there's no substitute for not doing that. You have to do that at some point. But if you can't right now, heal a little bit, and then you'll be able to. So hurt feelings can be a huge thing in every one of our lives. Dealing with them correctly can take us up higher and higher in our life and actually become a blessing. Have a wonderful, blessed day.